since Spacies is now a member of the Ministry of Retro Gaming. Shining Resonance Refrain Review.
Since Spacies.
G'day invaders and welcome to Since Spacies, and today I'm carrying out my first review since 1995. That's right, I have not reviewed a game since leaving Hyper Magazine or that time ago, but thanks to the folks at 5-Star Games, I have decided to get back on that horse and start throwing scores at games again. The game to pull me up from my retirement is Shining Resonance Refrain. The version that I'm basing my review on is the Xbox One release, but this same version is out on the PlayStation 4, PC via Steam, and the Switch. The Shining series started in 1991, and I've actually featured this game before on the channel. It was a very simple JRPG release on the Sega Mega Drive and was out in a time when gamers were starving for games in this genre. The series reached its pinnacle with Shining Force 2 and later with Shining and the Holy Ark, but the Shining series had disappeared into obscurity since the Sega Saturn titles, with some titles appearing since on the PlayStation, mobile phones and DS, but with no real big hitters it seems. But in 2014, Shining Resonance Refrain had made its way to the PlayStation 3 in Japan only and was well received. Many fans had been holding out for an English language release, but now the wait is over with this remixed style release on current generation systems. So the premise of the game is based around your character Yuma being rescued from a dungeon in a castle by a magic knight Sonya. The character starts out as a weak, emo-fueled boy with loads of self-pity. But it's in the opening series of events of the game that you learn of his true burden. He holds the power to transform into a mighty dragon. Initially, he chooses not to make use of this power in fear of the harm it may cause, but later concedes to offer his ability to help his rescuers in their calls against an evil empire. Hardly Lord of the Rings stuff, but for those who like to escape the burden of their own daily lives, this is a bit of fun to be honest. There is, however, a deeper, more complex storyline to the game around the backstory of how the land itself formed during the Ragnarok era, with legends of shining dragons and dragoneers. Without spoiling much more than that, it's safe to say that there is more to this game than simply saving someone from a castle. You'll team up with up to 7 party members, but in the all-new Refrain mode, you'll get 2 new previously unavailable characters that flesh out the evil side of the storyline a little more. This bumps up the playable characters roster to 9, which is a pretty decent sized base to work with. The characters are your usual Japanese anime affair, with the female characters not being afraid to have all their pervy bits on show, but the male characters all seem to be either too emo or cartoonish in the macho behaviour, but they're likeable all the same. The story is mostly told through chat screens, featuring still pictures of the characters and voice acting. This style of storytelling is very common in JRPGs and is mostly found on PSP and Vita style games, but I have seen it on home consoles before as well. It works for the most part as it leaves developers free to pour more effort into fleshing out more dialogue without the need to use up resources on cutscenes overload. There are, however, cutscenes from time to time to pace out the story from the more dramatic scenes. The game uses the township of Margot as your main hub, where you get fetch crests, items, and supplies. It's not without its bad points having this hub-like approach to this RPG. You'll find yourself going back and forth along the road in the grasslands so often that you'll get so tired of seeing it. That aside, it does make for an easy opportunity to grind away on some of the easier enemies. Which leads me to the battle system. It's very similar to Phantasy Star Online and many other JRPGs, which to me is actually a good thing. I like this style of battle. If you see an enemy, you can run up to it and get started on wailing on it. You have a party of up to 4 characters to battle with, and you control one of the characters, with the other 3 being AI. The AI can be a little thick. This is pretty much evident in the boss battles. As you attack, you deplete AP points, which are represented on a fairly cool original style orbital graph. Think of this as your stamina. It works in a similar fashion to Final Fantasy VII's time bar. You can also break your opponent, which renders them defenseless for a short amount of time. This allows you to affect more damage to your enemies while their breakpoint is reached. You have force abilities, which is essentially the game's magic. This ranges from simple heals to other attack spells which can be effective in battle. Nothing too left of field here for an RPG. You can also pull off some conductive moves which essentially tell your party what to concentrate on. Healing, attack, defense, etc. You also have band sessions. Now this is where the game gets a little weird, in a good way. You see, your party breaks into a song. If you have enough BPMs, that's battle performance mana points built up, the battle stops and the characters perform their song, and then you'll have an extra ability while this lasts. It's certainly a novel and unique way to watch a battle unfold. Overall, the battle system feels okay, but I do feel that the attack options are a little bit limited with only 2 buttons on offer. Your main character can transform into a dragon, but you need to use this sparingly to avoid going berserk. I found this feature to be somewhat pointless and ineffective at first, but as the game progresses, you'll be able to transform into a much more powerful version of your character's dragon shine ability. If you pull off a band session while transformed as a dragon, you'll be able to unlock a D unison move, which is similar to a summon style attack, and it's pretty dramatic. You can apply certain items to your weapons that acts as buffs and enhancers to your characters called aspects, and these are earned as you display certain character traits in the storyline. There are also opportunities to tune your weapons, many of which are influenced by musical instruments, hence the reference to tuning and the band sessions. I found the enemy characters to be somewhat underwhelming, with colour swapping happening within even my first hour of gameplay. This is the easiest way for devs to recycle in-game assets, and while I'm all for recycling in real life, this is really overkilling the concept. The enemy designs are somewhat basic, with some strange surprises in there, such as Kazawaris, which are large emu-like Australian birds, and other strange enemies, but nothing that makes you think, wow, I really love this enemy type. For my money, the boss battles were where the game could have used more love and attention, with some bosses simply walking about like mindless robots, copping endless hits from your team, but only to stop and then unleash a hellish attack which can instantly wipe out some party members in one foul swoop. Oh, you'll need to grind your characters for this game, as I found out the hard way. You'll be engrossed in the intertwining relationship web between all the different characters you'll be unlocking as the game progresses, with a healthy dose of male and female antagonists alike. You'll also be able to unlock some story mode scenes as you level your way up the dating sim that also assist with building bonds with your characters. Some of these can also affect the outcome of the game, so you'll find yourself pushing to max out relationship levels with your favourite characters. I've actually found the plot to be interesting and engaging. Not the most overly original story I've ever seen in a game, but the extensive dialogue and cutscenes allowed many opportunities for the characters to be fleshed out in a way not normally present in a role-playing game. You have a main character who has an overwhelming power that can save a kingdom, and you have an enemy doing what they can to capture or destroy him in the hope to exploit this power for their own will. Some of the dialogue comes across as cringy, but I'm not fazed by this personally. There's a certain charm to the characters in this game, but not on the same level as other games doing the rounds at the moment, like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I am currently burying hours of gameplay into at the moment. Which leads me to my biggest possible gripe with the game. This is great to see Sega releasing a new shining game in the West, but this is a 4-year-old game which is not cutting edge on launch, and is even more ordinary looking now compared to the competition going about at the moment. With games like Monster Hunter, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Final Fantasy 15 available now, it's hard to see this competing on their level. The character models are very limited on enemies. The landscapes look decidedly barren and bare, plus there's loads of cutscenes with no dialogue at all. Just text-heavy story scenes that can be quite extensive. But buried in all these problems, I feel that there is a good game here for those of you who are patient enough to scratch through the layers to get to it. The voice acting is actually quite solid on the main characters, but limited on supporting roles. The amount of voice dialogue is actually quite generous, with some scenes going for as long as up to 5 to 10 minutes to move the plot along. The gameplay is very reminiscent of Eternal Sonata, Phantasy Star Online, and the Tales series and other such JRPGs. And that's a good thing, because those were solid titles. As was the case with those titles, the character development is where this game shines the most. No pun intended. As you have this overarching storyline and the players and their relationships to each other to play the main focal point of the story. There are major plot twists at regular intervals in the game in a way that the Japanese do best. I feel that the biggest winner here will be the Nintendo Switch owners, as this will fill a bit of a void nicely as RPGs are getting ported over to the system. And these graphics lend themselves nicely to the handheld, with this game being a perfect fit for players to sneak in grind sessions to and from work. Shining Resonance Refrain is a solid JRPG for those who are not expecting AAA style graphics and who are there for the grind. The story is engaging enough to get into, and you'll be playing to see how the plot plays out as characters build up the tension against each other. Music wise, there's a solid effort here, and you'll find that the sounds are quite solid as well. The added bonus in this release is the fact that all DLC is included with the game, with character skins being unlocked right from the word go. These skins are not just fan service either, with some unlocking certain abilities and buffs. Although this game has nothing to do with the Shining series that I knew and loved, it's easy to recommend this to fans of the genre. I am not sure if I can extend that recommendation to the casual gamers out there. Its now outdated graphics and character designs just don't make it easy to have newcomers get caught up in the hype of this game. But there's certainly more than enough here to please everyone who has poured hours into any Tales of series or Phantasy Star Online games. Its anime style will certainly appeal to a wide range of gamers out there, and there's loads to the battle system that will keep you enthralled. Although I'm giving this a 6.5, this could easily have been more than that if the game had been given a bigger bump in the graphics for the current gen systems. Having said that though, you can ignore my score if you're looking into a competent JRPG. So there you have it, the first review on my channel, and my first review since 1995. If you like what you've seen here, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. I'll have more reviews coming up over the next few weeks, but until then, my name has been Brian and I've been gaming since Spacies. Thanks guys.
Since Spacies.